Welcome to Celebration Move podcast. My name is Zoe and we're just doing a super quick one today because my flight to Canberra isn't until 9 o'clock, which I picked on purpose for two reasons. One, so that I can get the girls from school before I go because it's been their birthday weeks this week. So I just wanted to sort of make sure I could spend as much time with them as I could before I go. They're about to go on school holidays, which works out nicely, so I'll get back and they'll have 2 weeks off, so we can just sort of lounge around in PJs for a week or so. So that's good. And the other reason is it goes straight through from the Gold Coast to Canberra, so I'm not having to stop in Sydney on the way, which is the benefit of taking the last flight. But the downside is I don't get to Canberra until like 10 to 11, and that is just going to be what it is. And so today was a bit of a mad rush, to put it mildly, to get everything that I needed to get done. And I sort of finished the stuff that needs to be done before I go. And I wanted to do this quickly because this is episode 99, and I kind of wanted episode 100 to be after I get back from Canberra. I'm hoping that maybe I might be able to record a few things with a few people while I'm down there. But if I don't, then at least I would have a really good story for episode 100. So that was my theory. So I thought that I'd touch on a little bit today about how to create habits that make things almost inevitable. So one of the things that you'll sort of notice with anything is that it's that initial movement that is really hard, like that getting out the door, that is really hard. And after you're out, it's fine and it's easy, and like there's no point in time when you get out the door where you go, oh, like maybe I'll go back in. Like that just doesn't happen. So, and a lot of that is because motivation doesn't happen before you do something. It sort of happens after you do something. So it's sort of like all about getting that initial movement happening. And a lot of that can be like you can trick yourself into doing that, because it's sort of like when there's sort of inertia, when you're not moving, there's a lot of forces that are going to keep you not moving, and once you're moving, there's a lot of forces that are going to keep you moving. So a lot of it is like creating these routines where that initial thing is super easy and kind of unrelated to what you're going to do, but once you do it, it sort of like gets the ball rolling, and then everything else gets a lot easier. So even though for me that's a really, really simple thing, which is me laying out clothes the night before, and then in the morning I'm not getting up and going, oh, I got to go for a run now. I'm getting up and going, oh, I got to get dressed. And once I'm dressed, I'm like, okay, and now I do this, this, and this, which is like keys ready and whatever else I need. And it just creates this forward momentum that has very little to do with me thinking about if I've got to go for a run or not. And I've had plenty of time to think about it this week because the last few days I've been tapering. So I've had like a few easy 10K runs to do. But I thought, okay, right, well, I'm going to, it's not a huge amount of time to be running. And so I thought I'll sleep in, make the most of my sleep, while I'm in this phase of sort of being as rested and recovered as much as I can for the race, and then I will go for a run like after the kids are in school. And oh my Lord, it has been challenging to get out the door. And it's stuff that I would love to do because I love having like super relaxed, easy runs, and I can listen to podcasts while I'm doing it. And I'm not on there's no sort of like clock that I'm on like I would be in the morning where I've got to be back at a certain period of time. So I can stop as much as I want to take pictures or whatever. So ordinarily be 100% up my alley. I would be very excited for it. And this week, because it's been that break in routine, getting myself out the door for a lunchtime or post-school drop-off run, it's been so hard. And that is in part because that routine has been broken. So if you can create those sorts of habits, then you can essentially like put yourself on autopilot a bit. And so whether it's with laying out your clothes, or sort of like having like a sort of like a set routine for like what you eat before you go, or like what music you listen to, any kind of like really kind of like basic routines that you don't really have to think about that much, but you do exactly the same thing every day, are going to really help to create this kind of thing where you actually exiting the door is kind of inevitable at that point, and anything where you don't have to think about it is really going to help. And then once you get started, it just builds on itself. So that, you know, like initially kind of like that thing of like getting dressed might not seem like it has a big impact on how much easier it is to get out the door. But after you've been doing that a week, a month, 3 months, a year, it becomes almost predetermined at that point in time. And so that's why you have people who have like really well-established running habits who then want to get into strength training, and they're like, why is this so hard? I can go for a run anytime. And then there's this thing which is new and you don't have those habits and those routines for, and it makes it so much more challenging. And it can be really quite frustrating when you have something like that and you're trying to incorporate a new habit. So some of the other ways that you can start working in those habits that maybe you're a little bit less keen on, but you know you need to do, is you can either attach them to an existing habit that is really well established. So say, for example, when I was at the osteo this week, she said, your glutes are activating in reverse. So what that means is my hamstring is going, and then my glute, and then my lower back, when it should be lower back, glute, hamstring. So, you know, it does not surprise me at all. But so she said, okay, like before you go for a run, let's do some activations before you go. Now, if I just had glute activation as a thing that I was doing, that would not happen. But it's super easy for me to do it before I run because it's something that is already happening. And it's similar with rehab or strength training, like for things that when I was getting started that might be challenging for me to do, I'd be like, right, this happens before I go for a run, piggyback it onto something that is 100% guaranteed to happen, and then that thing is that much easier. It's also really good to do that sort of stuff before a run because you're reinforcing good movement patterns, good mechanics, and you're also not, with strength training, you're not burning glycogen, so you're not going to be fatigued going into that run, but in the reverse, you'll probably be a little bit fatigued going into strength training off a run. So I do find that it works better doing strength training first and then running, if that's something that you are incorporating. And another thing that you can do is something that is called temptation bundling, which is where you take something that you really, really like and you combine it with something that maybe you're less keen on, and that makes it more attractive as a whole. So for me, a lot of what I do is I save my favorite podcasts for things that maybe I'm less keen on. So saving them for rehab. Generally speaking, because rehab is the same every week, it can be more challenging to get through because you're not having that progression, you're not having those sort of changes, whereas my strength training will vary week to week. So that's often easier for me to feel excited about and stay engaged with, whereas the rehab is the same every week. And so it can be more challenging to stay engaged with the process. So that's probably the thing that I need the most help in getting myself over the line for. So not allowing myself to listen to my favorite things except at that time is a great way to go, cool, I have to do this thing that I'm not really keen on, but I'm going to get to listen to this thing that I've been waiting to listen to. And so that can be a great way to do it. Or, I mean, in the more kind of like, which, in general, I try to get away from rewarding myself with food. But sometimes you just got to do whatever works. And there are 100% been times I've been like, do the rehab, get a double Coke Tim Tam and just get it done. So those are also ways that you can kind of meld habits together and then they strengthen one another, particularly with habits that are less established. So, yeah, that is some things that you can try this week. It's going to be a whole bunch of us going down to Canberra for the running festival for the 10K and the 21. I don't think anyone's run it that I'm aware of is running the marathon this year. But if you would like to catch up with us, just send me a message, let me know, because I would love to see you there. And I will be back next week with episode 100. Also, we've got, I guess it's like now about 10 days until Learn to Run starts. So if you want to jump into Learn to Run, there's programs there they go like there's beginner, which starts at intervals of like 15 seconds of running. So it's designed for absolute beginners. And then you have going up to the advanced program, which is designed for people who can already run 30 minutes continuously. And I'm more than happy to write individual programs for anyone who is sort of like in between that or has a slightly different goal in mind. So if that's you, you can jump in on that. If you use the code podcast, that will get you a discount at checkout. And I will speak to you next week. Bye.